So, quick second channel video. I'm going to talk about something because I definitely tweeted out something that I didn't give full context with, and it's one of these things where it's like in 280 characters, it's hard to explain actual, you know, like talking point. It's hard to explain an actual point, and definitely what I like, it's easier to actually, explain it. So basically, it is the Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers debate, and why I was so concerned about what Caitlin Clark did today, and why the chain at this point in time, for me anyway, may have been snatched. And nothing to do with today. I don't think Paige was spectacular today. I think Paige was slightly better than Caitlin. But I use the word very much slightly. I think she was slightly better. The problem is that I've always made the argument, even when Paige was in UConn, that from a tangible skill level, if you matched up skills, if this was NBA 2K, Paige Bueckers would be a better NBA 2K player than Caitlin Clark. That has always been my opinion. I've always felt like that. The difference has been mentality. I feel like Paige has a naturally passive mentality. I feel like Caitlin is Kobe-esque. I feel like Caitlin has a killer mentality. I think with every passing game, with every passing week, it feels like Caitlin's killer is going. It does not feel like she has, for lack of a better word, like that same aura about her, because this was she just like, if you look in like outside, like a couple of texts for Zaza James teeing up flops or say offensive fouls, yeah, like if she doesn't do that 3 times, her stat line on today is 20 points, 7 assists and 2 turnovers, 5 boards. She's again a 25-5 game. Nobody's ever averaged 25-5. If she does this for the season, cool. Like, this is not a bad game from Caitlin Clark. A very poor game based on what we expected from her, given the context of the overall game and the score of the game. You would be expecting more. But no, a bang average game from Caitlin. The problem is that there's no longer, and I can see it in my chat, even when she was struggling, even when she had 3 points against New York, even when she had 8 points in a win against Chicago and against Angel Reese, there was always this kind of like aura that something major might happen. It doesn't even feel like Caitlin Clark believes that anymore. And that's the scary thing. I think Caitlin Clark completely irrationally believed she was the best player in the world coming out of college. I think she believed it. I think she thought no one was better than her. Like, she came up against a team of 6 WNBA players in LSU and gave them a 40-point near triple-double and cooked them. Even when she was struggling early on in her WNBA career, being picked up full court and struggling, she still went in their first win against the Seattle Storm. She struggled the entire game. Since Seattle Storm, the LA Sparks, she struggled the entire game and hit back-to-back, step-back 30-footers to win the game. Then they got the win against Chicago. Then she had 30 against Washington, 5 threes in a row, was dancing around, was like Steph Curry aura. Like, remember 2015 Stephen Curry when he boomed, where it was like, you can tell, even if the world doesn't believe he's the best player in the world, you can tell this guy thinks he's the best player in the world. You can tell Steph Curry thinks Steph Curry's the best player in the world. That when he was running around in circles going through Chris Paul, like, Caitlin Clark was just adding stuff to her arsenal in 2024. Like, when I think it was her 35-point game. Fans started saying she didn't have a handle. So she just started spamming behind the back dribbles and shooting step backs, creating separation, doing all this stuff. And it's like, she has the ability, she has more ability now. Her handle, I don't know what happened the first 5 minutes of that game, but her handle's better than it ever was. She's stronger. She's better athletically. When she locks in, she's a better defender. All the tangible things are there. The problem for me with Caitlin right now is it doesn't feel like she believes, she has that irrational confidence anymore. And ironically, believing you're the best player in the world if you're Caitlin Clark now is not irrational confidence. When your bad game is 25-7. And maybe this is my opinion being like being a huge soccer fan, anyone who's a fan of soccer, is a fan of the Premier League, knows the epidemic that has happened in that sport, where at the highest level, flair players are gone. Players who play off instinct are gone. Every move, every run, everything you do is just micro-analyzed. So if you look at the greats, the all-time greats, like if Lionel Messi was coming up now, he would not be allowed to be Lionel Messi because he doesn't track back enough. He was so good that when the game changed around him, he was like, they let him do him because he was Messi. Like the Maradonas, the Pelés, the Ronaldinhos, if they were coming up now, they'd be sitting their ass on the bench because they don't track back. Their underlying numbers aren't good enough. They're all these 100 million stats. And that's the way sport's going. Where every run, every defensive action, every cross, everything you do, everything tactically is based on a spreadsheet. Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA, and the reason was that Caitlin Clark was pulling up logo bombs. Caitlin Clark didn't care. Caitlin Clark would throw. If Caitlin Clark threw the ball into the stands and Aaliyah Boston was open, it did not matter. She was throwing the next pass to Aaliyah Boston. If she threw another one into the stands, she was throwing the next pass. She was a goldfish. Caitlin Clark was a goldfish as a rookie. She didn't care because we saw a 3-point game. We saw a 7-point game in Atlanta. None of it shook her confidence. We saw her today while the Fever were winning. The Fever were winning on the bench on an iPad, trying to overanalyze every play. Caitlin Clark had an awful defensive first half. Iffy offensive first half. I've seen Caitlin Clark have more turnovers than points in games. As a rookie, more turnovers than field goals in a lot of games. She had 10 turnovers in her first game. In her second game, had 6 points. What did she do? In her third game, had 14 points in the first quarter. She was a fucking goldfish. And now we're looking at a situation where she is she is on the bench watching footage, analysing her moves. Yeah, she fucked up. Caitlin Clark in her career is going to fuck up multiple times in games. That's the type of player she is. And the reason why she's so great is because there is greatness there. She has the best instincts ever. Nobody processes the game like she does. Nobody's instincts are better. Nobody reads the game like she can. Nobody can see a pass. Nobody can play the game like she can. Nobody can force a style of game, like a play like she can. And that player seems like it's on the way out. And look, maybe there's a version of Caitlin Clark that thinks more. I don't believe Caitlin Clark thought when she played. I believe Caitlin Clark did everything off instinct up to a point. Pre-Steph White, and I'm not blaming Stephanie White. Stephanie White's a hell of a coach. Stephanie White locked down Caitlin. And I'm not saying this is all Steph White's fault either. Because I think part of it is Caitlin Clark wanting to learn wanting to be a basketball star, wanting to learn so much about basketball. When a lot of what Caitlin Clark does well can't be taught. There's a reason why Caitlin Clark's Caitlin Clark. There are a lot of negatives to Caitlin, but the positives outweigh the negatives. The problem is that now all the focus is on the negatives, what she needs to do to fix her negatives. That what made Caitlin Clark, in my opinion, the best guard in the world, the best offensive player in the world, I don't know if it's there anymore. Like, we saw flashes. Caitlin Clark's super, by the way. She's still brilliant. But the best in the world trajectory, she has too many weaknesses that the best in the world trajectory doesn't happen unless she has that goldfish, irrational confidence. I'm better than everyone else. I'm doing everything off instinct. I'm doing things my way. I'm Caitlin effing Clark. Because Caitlin Clark is not good at being anyone other than Caitlin Clark. And it could very well be her choice. I've heard from some people that Gino Auriemma was pissed with Paige basically being, for lack of a better word, like a slave to efficiency. That like he was pissed that she was so reluctant to take shots because she got in her head about, I don't know what happened, but she got in her head about being efficient, hyper efficiency and everything. And the problem is that when you have Caitlin in her head, by the looks of things, she very clearly is in her head. The shots aren't in rhythm. They're not the same type of shots she was shooting when she was shooting well. It's not the same tempo she's playing at. Like if teams didn't pick her up full court, she would just go meep meep and run. Like she burned Paige a few times going to the basket, but like her it just doesn't seem there. Maybe it's a one-off, but it feels like she's in her head, even with USA, even with everything. I don't know who's causing it. I'm not going to blame Stephanie White, because it very well could be her. She might have lost in the playoffs in 2024 and felt like she needed to adapt her game. But how many in sports, if you're a fan of sports, how many players in sports have had a loss and have gone to try to fix what caused them to lose something? Whether that be a golf swing, whether that be something in a tennis swing, where they feel like this specific shot I'm not good at, let me work on it, and they fuck up everything. Or in football, where they become overly obsessed with analytics to the extent where they lose the flair, which is what made them in the first place. The reason I tweeted out earlier today that 2024 Caitlin Clark is much better than this version of Paige Bueckers. But this version, 2024 Caitlin Clark, is significantly better than this version of Caitlin Clark. And that currently 2026 Paige is greater than 2026 Caitlin. And I definitely could be overreacting. But if we have a careful mentality Caitlin Clark, a Caitlin Clark who thinks about the decisions she makes instead of seeing things on instinct. If you have to think, if you're Caitlin Clark, you even look at some of the passes. She doesn't throw passes she used to throw because she has to think, could this be a turnover? Instead of just throwing the spectacular pass. Throwing the pass that only she can do. She thinks, could this be a turnover? And doesn't throw it. Or throws it late. Her light ball turnovers are down. Her passing turnovers are down. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit because Caitlin Clark was spectacular. She was one of one. If you have Caitlin Clark without that killer mentality, I've called her a mentality monster, and I've always said this point. Paige Bueckers does more well. Paige Bueckers is a more skilled player. I think Paige Bueckers, the dog in Paige Bueckers, is one of those little chihuahua things you put in that the socialites in 2000s put in a purse. And I stand by all those statements. Paige Bueckers almost no showing the fourth quarter other than one shot, missing the 2 free throws. Shout out Odyssey Sims and Enrique there. Shooting 80% and only shooting 10 shots. Paige Bueckers still has every one of the flaws that I said from a year ago. She's better as a basketball player. But now when the gap between them in skill, like Paige is the more skilled player. Caitlin, in my opinion, had the best mentality, the best instincts, the best natural feel for the game in the league. But if she's now trying to read the game and think the game like she's just another point guard, she becomes just another very good point guard. And when you're comparing her to the most skilled guard to ever play in the history of the WNBA and Paige Bueckers, which is, I don't think, like, again, if you put 2024 Caitlin's brain into Paige Bueckers, is the greatest player of all time right now. Like, into that skill set, it's the greatest player of all time right now. The problem is that you look at these two players and you're looking at it and it's like, okay, so you've got Paige wins efficiency. Defense, Paige tries on defense more often than Caitlin tries. They're similar level. Neither of them can guard a park car. When like Caitlin killed Paige, Paige would have killed Caitlin. Ironically, I think Caitlin couldn't guard any speed, but I do think Caitlin could guard Paige better than Paige could guard Caitlin, which is hilarious. But neither of them are great in defense. Passer. With every game, it feels like the instinct passing is going from Caitlin Clark. Like, there's a couple of passes that she didn't throw in this game off certain pick and rolls, and then she's limiting her P&R ball reps as well. So yes, Caitlin is the better passer, absolutely. The better point guard is Caitlin Clark. Paige Bueckers is a better catch and shoot player. Paige Bueckers creates her shot better. Paige Bueckers fits in more. Paige Bueckers has less low lows. Doesn't have the highs of Caitlin Clark, but less of the lows. But if you have a mentality of trying to dig yourself out of lows, you're never going to hit the highs, because to hit the highs that Caitlin Clark does, you have to play off instinct. You have to play like a goldfish. You have to be willing to hit a three in someone's face and scream in their face. Like, Caitlin Clark is a fucking psycho. At her best, is a psycho in the best way possible. We saw today, even when she hit those 2 threes, she's like smiling and like, oh yeah, let's hype it up. Even if that was in her rookie year, and those 2 threes in this type of a game, like the 3 that she hit with the Erica Wheeler pass against Connecticut, they hadn't won a game up to that point. She's screaming, hyping up the whole crowd, running in for a timeout. This time she just goes in, and that's it. That's it. I don't know what it is, and I hope it doesn't change. But I'm going to go on my Twitter point. My point on Twitter, I've talked about for 15 minutes. Paige Bueckers is a more skilled player than Caitlin. The reason why Caitlin Clark has been a better player up to this point in her career is because of the mentality. And it doesn't feel like Caitlin Clark has the same mentality towards the sport of basketball as she had in 2024. And I personally believe that is why I believe that her 2024 mentality, some people believe that's why they're losing. I don't. I think that's what made her Caitlin Clark. Because I think if you try to turn Caitlin Clark into mentality, anyone that's not Caitlin Clark, I think she has too many flaws as a player to kind of hide that. And I think trying to minimize her flaws has inadvertently, and I think this could be her doing, has inadvertently basically almost nullified her strengths, which is scary, which is actually scary, because 2024 Caitlin is the best point guard season in WNBA history.